Could you see them the entire time?
No.
And Hank knows Heather's response to this question is his entire case. He wanted her to say that she could see Karen's SUV the entire time after they met at that intersection. There's no John in the vehicle when she passes by.
I was in and out of the hospital during the second trial. Heather did not say that in the first trial, I'm sure of it.
As far as the male passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street, could you see him at that point?
I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
And he said importantly that the dome light was on, which indicates that the door was probably opening or in the process of being opening.
Was there, at that point, any lights on inside the car?
There was, yes. The dome lights.
Was the driver's side door open?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you see anybody else inside the SUV?
I did not.
Dome light was on, which indicates that the door was probably opening or in the process of being opening.
That was a huge problem for the prosecution when your expert is contradicting Brian Higgins and all the other witnesses that claim the Jeep was in front of the mailbox. Now you have your dopey expert saying that it wasn't there.
Have you ever tried to reverse at 24 miles per hour? Impossible. What do you think about that?
No, I wouldn't want to try it. You could do some amazing things sometimes when you're drinking.
Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned that. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Kevin. Kevin, you bring up a great point that I never really considered. And we're going to get into the actual backing up at that high rate of speed. She's also drunk, and there's no way you can say that being intoxicated improves your ability to drive. And I never accounted for that fact because I never really put much weight into the fact that she was backing up at that rate of speed in that situation. But it is interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not implying that someone becomes a better driver when they're drunk. Not at all. What I'm saying is that sometimes there are certain things that when you're drunk, you just completely relax and you do something. If you were sober, you would be thinking about it more or be more rigid. But if you're drunk, you just kind of, your body's loose and you just do it without really thinking. It's definitely an impressive piece of driving. It's really bulletproof evidence that we know that she, after making that 3-point turn, she comes back to the intersection and she makes the turn at 12:24 and 18 seconds. That's registered in the Waze data. It's undisputed. And so that's the intersection when she would have seen Ryan Nagel in the pickup truck there and all that. After that 3-point turn is when she punches it in reverse at, 75% throttle for 5 seconds. So what time is that? Well, that would be 12:32 and 6 seconds. So that would have put the collision at 12:32 and 11 seconds. Now that's might be plus or minus a couple of seconds, but that just happens to be a few seconds before John's phone stopped moving for good at 12:32 and 16 seconds.
According to Commonwealth expert Judd Welcher, Karen Reed's Lexus was idling in position a short distance ahead of John O'Keefe, somewhere just beyond the flagpole. He claims she drove forward 34 feet and stopped. Fairview Road is typically quiet. In those conditions, the sound of an approaching vehicle speeding towards you wouldn't just be audible, it would be alarming. Welcher asserts that Karen pressed her foot down on the gas pedal, applying 75% of its full range, and accelerated toward John, reaching a speed of nearly 24 miles per hour. Traveling a distance of well over 87 feet, striking his bent arm, causing the mismatched wounds, and projecting his body through the air or in some other way to its ultimate resting place just below the flagpole. The Commonwealth mostly glazed over this aspect of the collision, likely because it's the most unbelievable part of their theory. They provided no scientific evidence explaining how a taillight could produce the specific pattern of abrasions on John's right arm, how he sustained no broken bones or significant bruising.
He's got a cracked, broken elbow. Those two bones in the forearm are completely in two. His wrist is broken, and the broken elbow is definitely from the impact.
Or how he managed to lock his phone after being incapacitated under this scenario. After the SUV travels 87 feet, the trigger event data ends, but the vehicle is still accelerating, with its last recorded speed being its highest.
It's still moving about 23 miles an hour, and you're still at 74% throttle and 3,300 revolutions per minute on the tachometer, RPM gauge.
It's not just still moving, it's still speeding up, and Karen is applying zero pressure to the brake, which is a major problem for one big reason.
Exactly where was your Jeep in front of that house?
By the mailbox. The back end of the Jeep
would have been about equal with the mailbox, and I was not blocking the driveway.
How could the Lexus have been accelerating in reverse at the speed of 23.9 miles per hour when it would have collided with the Jeep, causing a violent crash that would almost certainly have severely damaged both vehicles?
Time between 12 and 1. Did you make any assumptions whether there were cars parked out front on the roadway at 34 Fairview?
At a point in time, there was a vehicle behind it. There was a vehicle behind it.
Just one?
That is my understanding. In terms of on the street.
On
is
the
your
street,
question.
exactly.
Yes.
What kind of vehicle was it?
An F-150 pickup.
Did you have any understanding as to whether there was a Jeep vehicle on the road at that 12 to 1 time period?
Check this
I
out.
had seen testimony
Okay.
somewhere to that effect, but the majority of the testimony was there were no other vehicles.
Right. So that was a huge problem for the prosecution when your expert is contradicting Brian Higgins and all the other witnesses that claim the Jeep was in front of the mailbox. Now you have your dopey expert saying that it wasn't there. And he believes the independent kids that were in Ricky's F-150 that there was no Jeep there. It was an issue. Hank eventually objects to any further questions on that, but Alessi made the point, which is very subtle but very critical, because what Kevin is saying that the car is rolling back at 12:32 and 9 seconds. Kev, that's what you said. And then at some point, she not only has to hit John, she has to stop that vehicle and then get back to her house by 12:36. So it's a almost impossibility that it occurred at this point, but it's not necessarily impossible, but it's going to be very hard for her to do this.
So we know that John got out of Karen's car at 12:31 and 56 seconds, because that's when the temperature of the phone dropped 10 degrees suddenly.
No, we don't know. Hold on. We don't know that at all. They arrived at 12:24. Kevin's claiming that he's able to determine when John O'Keefe exited Karen Reed's SUV based upon John's cell phone's battery temperature. From 12:22 to 12:37, the temperature dropped from 77 degrees to 72 degrees. Since we know John exited the vehicle between 12:22 and 12:37, we know the battery temperature of John's phone dropped 5 degrees in that time frame. And then from 12:37 to 12:45, it drops from 72 degrees to 66 degrees, but there is no way to conclusively tell from John's phone battery's temperature, given these data points, when exactly he exited the vehicle. Therefore, using the cell phone battery's temperature is not reliable in explaining exactly when John O'Keefe exited the vehicle. Actually, we know for certain that's not true, because the kids passed by the SUV and they all testified, or two of them did, that John wasn't in the SUV anymore. That's before 12:32.
First of all, it's not the kids. It's only one person looked at that. It was Ryan Nagel. The other two weren't paying attention.
No, the female testified too.
She was asleep in the back. She didn't testify to seeing anything at the parked car. She only saw at the intersection.
Hi, I'm Heather Maxon. I'm 31.
Do you know a person by the name of Ryan Nagel?
I dated him a few years back. The interior lighting was on, so that's why I had noticed as we were pulling away the female in the driver's seat.
She was asleep in the back.
Male passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street, could you see him at that point?
I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
When they got at the intersection. So the only person that looked out was Ryan Nagel from the passenger seat.
Who was driving?
Our friend Ricky
Richard D'Antano, Ford F-150.
Where were you sitting?
in the back seat.
She was asleep in the back.
And what kind of vehicle was it?
It was a truck.
Ford F-150.
There was another vehicle also on the road coming from the opposite direction, and we had let that other vehicle turn.
Who turned first onto the road, Ricky or the other car?
The other vehicle.
The other vehicle, do you know what type of vehicle it was?
It was a big, like, SUV.
When the SUV turned, did you get to see inside the vehicle?
I did see inside the vehicle, yes. I saw a male and a female inside the car. The female was driving and the male was in the passenger seat.
She was asleep in the back. She didn't testify to seeing anything at the parked car. She only saw at the intersection.
When they turned and then Ricky turned after them, how far ahead of Ricky were they?
Maybe 100 feet.
Could you see them the entire time?
No.
And Hank knows Heather's response to this question is his entire case. He wanted her to say that she could see Karen's SUV the entire time after they met at that intersection. Had she been able to keep her eye on that vehicle, she would be able to confirm the prosecution's theory that John was in the SUV when Ricky's F-150 pulled up behind Karen's SUV. However, because Heather is an innocent witness with nothing to gain or lose with regard to the outcome of this case, she has a very credible story. By the time she leaves 34 Fairview, she does not see John O'Keefe in the vehicle, but she specifically sees Karen Reed. This is such a critical fact to this case, and it undermines Kevin's hypothesis that John O'Keefe was in the vehicle up until the point for which he got out at 12:32 and then was struck by Karen Reed's car.
When you drove to Fairview, how long did it take after the turn?
A couple minutes.
Hank did not want to hear that answer. He wants to shorten the distance of time between when those cars met at that intersection and when Ricky's F-150 pulls up at 34 Fairview, because in his theory, there's not enough time for John to have exited the vehicle without any of these kids in Ricky's F-150 actually see him get out.
It took a couple minutes to get from Cedar Crest to Fairview?
Oh,
That's
maybe.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. The other vehicle, the SUV, was it in front of you or behind you when you stopped?
It was in front of us.
What happened next?
Ryan had reached out to Julie saying we're here, and so she had come outside and we had a short conversation, and she decided that she was actually going to stay at the house. She had invited us in.
The fact that Heather credibly states forth that Julie Bagel invited him inside the house is detrimental to the theory that John O'Keefe was somehow in the house going up and down 3 flights of stairs or getting beat in the basement, because it's her testimony that confirms the fact that it was Jen McCabe asking Julie Bagel to have her good-looking brother Ryan and his friend come in because she wants to party, and not because they were trying to cover up the beating of John O'Keefe.
But I had said that I didn't want to go inside. I just wanted to go back to the house.
From the time you first arrived at that address and until the time you left, did you ever see anybody get out of the SUV that was in front of the truck?
I did not.
It didn't look inviting. The outside was dark, and I didn't see any familiar looking vehicles. And I said, John, can you make sure we're welcome? He said, I'll run in. So when John got out of the car, he took my full vodka soda and he walked up the driveway, and John always kind of skipped and walked at the same time. He was always in a rush. And I saw him reach the breezeway door, and he opened the door and went to walk in.
When you left, did you drive by the SUV?
We did.
What did you see?
I saw the female that I saw beforehand, also still in the car.
Where did you see her?
In the driver's side.
The kids passed by the SUV and they all testified, or 2 of them did, that John wasn't in the SUV anymore.
First of all, it's not the kids. It's only one person looked at that. It was Ryan Nagel. The other 2 weren't paying attention.
No, the female testified too.
She was asleep in the back. She didn't testify to seeing anything at the parked car. She only saw at the intersection.
Was there, at that point, any lights on inside the car?
There was, yes.
Which
the
light?
dome lights.
Was the driver's side door open?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you see anybody else inside the SUV?
I did not.
When Ricky was pulling away, you looked over to the SUV and you saw that the interior light was lighting up the front compartment, correct?
Correct.
And it was then that you looked over and you saw a female in the driver's seat.
Yes.
You did not see any person in the passenger seat, correct?
Correct.
And you certainly did not see a 6-foot-tall off-duty police officer in the SUV at any point on Fairview Road.
Correct.
You're talking about Heather?
Yes.
Yeah, you're wrong about that part.
Yeah,
for certain.
Okay.
I just looked
She's
at it
certain.
the other day.
Let's not quibble over that. What Ryan Nagel said was that he saw a woman with her hands on the wheel. He didn't say that nobody else was in the car. He just said he didn't see anybody else, which is a different thing. And he said, importantly, that the dome light was on, which indicates that the door was probably opening or in the process of being opening.
Was there, at that point, any lights on inside the car?
There was, yes.
Which
the
light?
dome lights.
Was the driver's side door open?
Not to my knowledge.
Did you see anybody else inside the SUV?
I did not.
Dome light was on, which indicates that the door was probably opening or in the process of being opening. So we can speculate that the truck probably went by as John was getting out of the car. But we do know that the phone battery dropped 10 degrees suddenly at 12:31 and 56, and that's a very strong indication. The only possible explanation that I can think for that is that that's when John got out of the car.
It doesn't, though. I think you're actually proving our case a little bit better than you thought, because there's no way that John was in the SUV when those kids passed by, and it had to be before 12:32.
You're going on witness testimony, very limited on what they're going to see. And we don't know what they saw and didn't see. They're going on memory. I have no problem with thinking Ryan's testimony is accurate, that they drove by as John was getting out of the car at 12:31 and 56 seconds. And that's why they saw the dome light on.
The dome lights.
Was the driver's side door open?
Not to my knowledge.
Dome light was on, which indicates that the door was probably opening or in the process of being opening.
It wasn't Ryan, it was his girlfriend at the time in the back. She's so credible as this because she describes both of them as they meet at the intersection, and then she describes exactly what she's looking at as they're driving by, as she drives by Karen's SUV, and she's so clear that the dome light is on. It has nothing to do with being a door being open or not.
That's what opens the dome light.
Or you turn it on because you're looking at emails and doing other things. I mean, I do that all the time. So that's not indicative of anything. But either way, she's very credible that there's no John in the vehicle when she passes by.
I was in and out of the hospital during the second trial, and Heather did not say that in the first trial, I'm sure of it. Heather did not say that in the first trial, I'm sure of it.
And as you were passing, what, if anything, did you note as far as the interior lighting within the vehicle?
Yes, the interior lighting was on, so that's why I had noticed as we were pulling away the female in the driver's seat.
There's no John in the vehicle when she passes by.
I was in and out of the hospital during the second trial. Heather did not say that in the first trial, I'm sure of it.
As far as the male passenger that you saw as you were pulling onto the street, could you see him at that point?
I did not see any other person, just the female in the driver's seat.
She never said it in the statements recorded by the police. So I don't know. In the second trial, I was in and out of the hospital getting radiation and different things. So I did miss certain parts of testimony in the second trial. I went back and tried to watch important things. I don't remember going back and rewatching.
Then let's table that because I don't want to put you on the spot. She's very credible, in my opinion, as to exactly what she saw. So I don't want to debate that now because either she said it or she didn't, and you have to make your own determination. I think you'll come back and we'll see what you think about that.
Even if, like I said, even if she did say that, it wouldn't change anything. Oh, I'm sorry.
You can join Sam and me for a nooner every Monday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, where we review only the Karen Reed case in very great detail. It's live, it's fun, and we'll see you there. But no matter what, we will never, ever stop producing these videos until the real killer,
Brian Higgins,
is brought to justice. This crime was very simple to solve because it took place within a very small area over a very short period of time with a very limited amount of suspects. One or more of these 10 people has to be the killer of John O'Keefe. That's how easy this is. Once you remove the kids and the McCabe's, you're down to just 3 suspects: Brian Albert, Higgy Bear, and Chloe. Since Chloe's a good dog, she didn't do it.
I didn't do it. I'm a good dog. I didn't do it.
So that leaves just 2 suspects, Brian Albert and Higgy Bear. But of the 2 Brians, only one had the means, motive, and opportunity to kill John O'Keefe. And that's our old cuddly but violent Higgy Bear. Once we had all the facts and didn't jump to conclusions, do you see how easy it was to solve this crime?
the defendant kissed me, not like a friend.
And what was your reaction to that?